Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of HPCritical Jrpg Club. This podcast is all about our progression through Final Fantasy X. We've started a Jrpg Club over at HPCritical if you'd like to join. Of course, you can still be involved with it, but for now we're going to talk all about our last month's entry. We did miss a little bit just due to, world issues, etc. So we progressed a little bit further this time, so we do have a lot to talk about. And this time I am joined by Job, Kristie, and Brandon. Do you guys want to say hi?
Hello,
Hi, everyone.
Hello, welcome back.
Alright, so unfortunately today we're missing, some new players and some veteran people, but, life happens, we gotta do what we gotta do, so we're just gonna continue on. First up, just gonna talk a little bit about everything that we went through, and then I'm just gonna get you guys' opinion on everything that we went through, and then we'll go from there. So the last time that we left off, actually, you know what? Brandon will probably do a better job at explaining what we went through than I would. Brandon, would you do the honors?
Of course. So basically, when we had first gotten started, the month, not this last month, the month before that, we had started at Mian High Road, went from there, crossed that long road, met a few characters here and there. But the main thing that we take from the high road is that we took part in Operation Mihen, which is a big turning point in the story because a lot of Crusaders die in that battle. We'll talk more about that in a second. But yeah, after Operation Mihen, we saw Seymour, got to fight alongside Seymour. That was interesting. And then from there, we went through the Moonflow, went to the Jose Temple, prayed, got our new summon, Ixion. Then from there, we crossed a little more of the Moonflow, finally reunited with Riku. We'll talk more about that as well as later. And then from there, went to Guado Salam, saw a bunch of stuff involving Seymour and the Farplane. And then following Guado Salam, we went on towards to the Thunder Plains. Not a whole lot happens there. Riku's super afraid of lightning. And then we got to Makalani Woods, and that is where we cut off for this month.
Yep, sounds really, really good. Okay, so I'm just going to go through everything and stop and ask you guys' opinion about some things, and then we'll continue on. And of course, feel free to interject in anything that you thought was interesting or that you want to speak up on from the Mihan High Road all the way to Makalania. This was actually a really big chunk. This is the first time we've ever done so much. So I look forward to the conversation that this is going to spark. So first of all, on the Mihan High Road, the first thing I wanted to talk about is that we meet Belgamine, who is the second summoner encounter in the game that we've seen, because the first one was that bitch.
Donna.
Thank you, Donna. Oh my god, I forgot your name.
Donna.
I want to talk about their meeting when we get there. I want to talk about their the conversation with Donna and Bartello and Jose because it's awesome. But continue.
So we see Belgamine, and we fight Belgamine, and let me just say that I was able to defeat her with one hit because I'm a bad bitch. And we find out that she cannot or was not able to defeat Sin in the past. We also get the calm explained to us a little bit, exactly what it is, which, do you want to explain what it is, actually?
It is basically the period of peace that happens after Sin is defeated before he is reborn into the world.
Yeah, so it is described as how Sin dies and is reborn, and exactly as Job said, it is that period of calm. That's why it's called the calm. Where people can sleep in their beds without being afraid, even if it's for a short time. And Yuna explains to Titus, that's exactly why the calm is so important, because it does give people a little bit of a respite. So before I continue, what did you guys think about Belgamine? I think the story used her in a very smart way, because she is the almost polar opposite of Donna. And it was really cool to have our second summoner experience be someone who is so humbled and someone who has apparently already encountered Sin and failed. But what do you guys think about her, if you had any thoughts?
I do, but I do have a quick question before I give my thoughts. Are we talking just about the first meeting her or our second meeting? Not a lot happened in the second one, but I'm just wondering if we could cover that as well.
I was talking about the first one, just when we first meet her, but I mean, we can encompass both, of course, like first and second.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess it's just a consequence of the fact that we kind of had like a pretty far goal this month and a half. But yeah, we did encounter Belgamine twice. So she's kind of like a pseudo rival in a way, which I think is kind of neat. The fact is, she functions more somewhat as kind of like a teacher type character as opposed to a rival, even though you do fight her multiple times. Just because she did fight Sin and, as you said, failed. So she's trying to get Yuna ready for her inevitable showdown with Sin. So to that end, she challenges Yuna to these Aeon battles, which are pretty interesting. They're not required to win. In fact, I wasn't paying attention the first battle, so I did use the wrong move at one point. I lost as a result of it, which really got me mad because I know I could beat her. But I was like, I'm not going to do all this over again on stream, so I'll just eat the loss. I won the second time, though. But I think it's cool that she's out looking out for Yuna, unlike Donna, who's explicitly not looking out for Yuna, that she really actively wants Yuna to succeed. And, of course, Belgamian is voiced by Kristie Summer, and that's freaking awesome.
Yes, she's amazing.
Oh, yes. And that's pretty much all I have to say about Belgamian for now, at least.
Anybody else?
I have nothing else to add.
No, yeah. He pretty much covered it.
That pretty much summoned. I know.
She's like the elegant Donna who is the mentor, and she's so much cooler than Donna in like every way.
Way cooler than Donna.
Donna is in it for her own selfish gain.
Facts. So then we arrive at Operation Mihen. And then we see Luzu, who says that even though they've rejected Yevon, they still believe in summoners. And we also meet Shalinda. I think actually before we get there, we meet Shalinda. She is a disciple of Yevon.
Yes.
And she attempts to stop everyone from using the Forbidden Machina, since it's strictly forbidden by the Yevon priesthood. And on the way also, this is on the way, this is actually on the Mihen High Road. This is still on the way to Operation Mihen, and we haven't gotten there yet. On the way, Oren suggests resting at an Albed rest stop, and Waka opposes, saying that the Albed don't believe in Yevon, and that they kidnapped Yuna, and Oren retorts with, "Where were her guardians?" which I think is one of the best comebacks in the game.
Yeah!
Because I know it's definitely something that we talked about on the last podcast, how shitty of guardians we were, that we just let her get kidnapped. And then we find out that Yuna and Titus have a conversation, and we find out that Yuna just wants to live a good life, and Titus says that after you beat Sin, after they defeat Sin, she'll be able to live with him again and have a good life. Do we want to stop and talk a little bit about the Albed and Waka right now, or do you want to hold off on it? I think we should probably hold off on it.
We should probably hold off, but I do just want to touch on that real quick, because we also meet Rin as well for the first time.
Yes, thank you.
So Rin is the proprietor of the Albed establishments that are centered on Spira. She's a character we'll be seeing a few more times, and we did see a few more times in our playthrough. I mean, up from where we started to where we ended this month. So he's here to stay, and while Waka's definition of the Albed is clearly some of these vicious people that don't care about Yevon or anything at all. Rin is like the polar opposite of everything that Waka has said about the Albed, for sure. So I really like Rin as a character, and I love that his very midway undermines Waka in that sense. That's all I'm going to say about it. We can touch on more on it later.
We actually also find out that Rin and Oren have a connection later on. Because at the rest stop in the Thunder Plains, they have a conversation about how Rin saved Oren's life, apparently, or helped him when he was injured.
I think that conversation that you're referencing is missable as well.
Oh,
because he goes like, "Excuse me, is that Sir Oren there?" Titus can say, "No, wrong guy." If he says wrong guy, that conversation doesn't even happen.
Oh, wow.
But here's the thing, though. It's a legitimate choice, too, because the natural thing is like, of course I'm going to tell him that it's Oren, because then you get that conversation. But if you tell him that it's not Oren actually appreciates that, and that ties into a late mechanic later. A hidden mechanic.
I did not know that.
I did not know this.
I already messed up.
When we get to Guadoslam, I'm going to talk a little more about that hidden mechanic that I'm referencing, but for now, let's continue.
Okay, so something else we find out is that Yuna actually, on the way, questions whether using Machina is actually a bad thing. And we see her have a little bit of internal reflection on noticing that she's actually never questioned the religion of Yevon since she was a child, so I thought that was really interesting. And then we also find out that the only way to beat Sin is through the final summon, which is what the pilgrimage is all about. And the faith of the final summon is in Zanarkand, which Titus says that he will go to Zanarkand to see it with his own eyes at that point.
Right.
And then we have the conversation with Rin, And he does mention to be careful when you speak the Albed language, which ties into the racism in the game against Albed. And then we find out about the Crusaders. We find out that the Crusaders is a mission with the Sin and the Albed. It's a collaboration. The Crusaders bring the Sin spawn and lure the Sin in, and the Albed destroy it with their Machina for Operation Mihen. So we continue on, and we find out that the Ancient Machina, which is as powerful as Aeons, is what the Crusaders use in the Operation Mihen. What they used, rather, and it had caused them to be excommunicated. And when we get there, we meet Seymour. He's there. He allows us to go through. And I think a couple of the party members, I'm sure Waka definitely is one of them, they question Seymour and his reasoning for being a part of the Operation Mihen. And Maester Seymour actually backs the Crusaders. And Waka has a little bitch fit.
Yeah, he does.
Oh,
Yes.
but
And he's so nervous to have that bitch fit too, because he respects Seymour and Yevon so much.
Yep.
But he's also just so mad that a Maester of Yevon, 2 Maesters of Yevon, in fact, because Keenock is there as well, is just like supporting this.
Yep, not only supporting it, but it's kind of like a little view into real life as well. How people turn a blind eye to what they know is wrong. Seymour outright says, "You're right, I should stop this." And then Waka's like, kind of like, "Oh, why don't you?" And then Seymour's just like, "Oh, just pretend I didn't say this, pretend you didn't see that. You know, it's all for the good of spirit."
Yeah, he literally says, pretend you didn't see it, or pretend I didn't say that. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And they're shocked when they hear him say that.
It's a great moment. Like, pretend you didn't see
It is
it.
wonderful.
I can't believe what you said. Pretend I didn't say it.
Very powerful.
Like, okay. Waka asks why the Maester is going against the teachings of Yevon, and Yuna does take a chance to intone and say that she actually also understands that the threat is bigger than religion and teachings. And I think that was also a really good look into Yuna, specifically being a summoner that is for the people. She knows also that this is wrong and this is against Yevon, but she's willing to also, let it happen just to attempt to defeat sin.
For the greater good.
And it's really interesting because, Seymour and Yuna are both agreeing here, but they're doing it in very different ways, I think. So that I think was a really cool juxtaposition between 2 summoners who want the same thing. They both technically, as far as we know, want Spira to survive against sin, and they're both agreeing to do something that they shouldn't do, but they both take different aspects in how they agree to do it. We also find out a lovely little tidbit between Waka, Chapu, Luzu, and Lulu. Wow, those names.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yep.
Luzu explains that he's the one who convinced Chapu, which is Waka's brother, to enlist, which ultimately resulted in his death. And Waka punches Luzu. And we also find out that Lulu knew about Chapu and the decision this whole time, and that he once said that he would propose to Lulu, and one day he randomly just went off and became a crusader. And Chapu said to Lulu, which I think this is super sweet, he said, "Being with my girl is good, but keeping sin far away from her is better." And
Yeah.
Aw.
yeah, that was just like, damn, Chapu, why can't your brother be less shitty? Like, why can't he be more like you? But that also gave us another look at, Waka's character. We get to see him be a little humble, but also upset. Like, he punched the fuck out of Luzu.
He clobbered him. And Lulu said that she did too when she found out.
Yep.
Yes, she also said that as well. Then, did anybody want to intone on that really quick before we move on?
I have something to say, but I'll let you continue first, because I want to specifically talk about Luzu in a second. I think you know what.
Okay, so then also Oren tones in and he says, let him go because he already chose his path, and he's talking to Yuna, and he says, like you did when you decided to become a summoner. And throughout the game so far, Oren has very much been on Yuna, as in letting her know that she's made this decision and she has to go through with it. Especially
Yes.
later on in our very close to our stopping point now, he makes sure, honestly, he's like, do whatever you need to do as long as you're not going to stop your pilgrimage. So throughout the chapters that we've been playing, he's very much on her ass about making sure that she knows that she chose this destiny and she's going to have to go through with it no matter what. And we also found out that Choppa left the sword that Waka gave him in Besaid and fought with an Albed Machina instead. And that is why, one of the reasons why Waka really does not like the Albed, because he blames them for Choppu's death, for using the Machina that are forbidden now, and it being a cause of the reason he's dead. And then we get Master Seymour and Maester Seymour and Maester Keenock at the command center. But I know you wanted to talk about Luzu a little bit, so please take the mic.
Oh, what I was going to say about Luzu is what happens after the operation.
Oh, okay. So I found out, I did not know this, but I found out that depending on who you talk to, one thing or the other happens, thanks to me watching Brandon's stream.
Yep.
But yeah, Maester Seymour and Maester Keenock are at the command center, and he says, I believe it was Maester Keenock who says, you must stand on and watch as others fight. No, I believe it was Oren that talks to Keenock, and he says that you're going to stand there and watch as others fight, or what did you choose to do? But we find out that Master Keenock is one of the four Maester Keenock, is one of the four maesters who leads the warrior monks, and he commands the crusaders. So he knows exactly what's going to happen here because he's a maester. He has allowed this to happen, even though it is against Yevon's teaching. So that is two maesters of the four that are alive who have conspired to go against Yevon's teachings. And Keenock, who is an asshole, does mention that the plan won't work, and he knows that the plan won't work, and we'll just let them dream a little longer, is what he says.
Yeah.
And even Oren at this point is confused as to how Maester Keenock has become a maester, because apparently he's always been a piece of shit for his whole life. And I wanted to ask you guys, now that we know that two of the four maesters are approving of Operation Mihen, and one of them knows that everyone is going to die, and he's using this as a way to, and he's in charge of those people that are going to die, by the way. He's in charge of the Crusaders. Like, that is his sect, and the warrior monks. Like, he's in charge of them. He knows they're going to die, and he's letting this go through with it. How fucked up is it that the maester knows that this is going to be a massacre? Like, how do you guys feel about the interaction between Maester Keenock and Maester Seymour?
It's extremely effed up, to be honest.
Yeah. Extremely.
But also, I feel like that the Maester, he wants to kind of prove his point that the Machina, they're bad, and just to emphasize on that point.
Yeah, except
Yeah,
that
I kind of get that
everyone.
impression too.
Yep. It's not even that they're bad. It's like, Machina's gonna be useless.
Mm-hmm.
And then he stands at the top of the battlefield, and Maester Keenock says that being a maester has its perks. I can just sit back and watch, as in sit back and watch as everyone dies, trying to make the world a better place. And then, everybody dies as Sin obliterates everyone. It is a very
It's
emotional
rough.
and horrible scene to watch. I mean, this is right after, we've already had the Sin massacre at Kilika, and now we have this massacre on a grander scale. I know that we've all actually played the game. I remember when I rewatched this, as I'm older, I was like, I did not remember that Sin literally just, Thanos snapped every fucking body.
Right. It wasn't even like the first time we saw Sin cause mass destruction, where he just caused a major typhoon and just obliterated Kilika that way. No, he just I think that the attack has a specific name, which was revealed very late in the game, but he used that attack and just obliterated almost all the Crusaders, and the rest just got swept away. It's
Yeah, it was really another show of Sin's power. I like you said, we had seen it in Kilika, but this was on another scale. This was literally people just turned into nothing, as opposed to getting swept up. This was this is the real power of Sin. It was very much, how exactly are we ever gonna attempt to defeat this thing? How did anyone before us defeat this thing. Even though the Albed and the Crusaders joined forces to attempt to do something about it, there's literally absolutely nothing that anyone could have done at that point. And it was a very, very emotional situation to watch, especially because you know that the Maesters are sitting at the top watching as everyone dies. And right after this, Oren confronts Keenock and he says to him, "Are you satisfied? Those who turned from Yevon died while the faithful live on." And that comes back to what Kristie mentioned, which is that they just want to make an example out of anyone who decides to defy Yevon. And, there are, I'm sure, plenty of other ways to do that. They just decided to be assholes and let people die in an attempt to do exactly that. And then, our lovely, empathetic Yuna runs forward to attempt to do something, and Seymour tells her that she must stay strong for the people as a summoner. She can't show her grief as she's, really distraught over this, and he also stops her from summoning at that point because he tells her she's not strong enough. And then he's disgusting. I know that I loved him in the last podcast. I know that. But
I was waiting for this.
He's just becoming worse and worse. And then,
he got slimy.
Yeah, he does some very slimy shit. And
0 to 100 already.
And he tells Yuna to take him as her pillar of strength during this time. And I was like, bruh, you knew that all these people were gonna die. You and that other Maester let it happen, and now you want her to just, suck up to you and let you be the guy that's there for her after all this bullshit. So I was not happy with him. Seymour's getting on my bad list. And then...
But that fight where he's on your team is pretty cool, though.
Yeah, I mean, he has those second level spells, and he's fucking shit up. So
OP.
Yeah, he does. I'm gonna ask you guys something that I'm gonna assume the answer is no, but I'll ask anyway. Did any of you get Seymour's limit in that fight?
Oh no,
I did not.
Damn.
No.
Yeah, it's nothing special. His limit is literally called Requiem, and it's literally just the Ultima spell, which you get late game.
Oh wow.
Which they did it because they didn't figure most people, like, with his power, you could just finish him out before you get the limit, which obviously all of us did.
Yeah.
But for those that were really curious, they wanted to give him something, so it just didn't break the game. So they said, just give him Ultima. And if you hadn't already finished off the Sin Spawn by that point, that finishes him off. So there you go.
And then after this, at this point, with the Operation of Failure, the consensus with everyone becomes that you can't ignore the teachings of Yevon. And I think this is really, really important because this goes throughout the rest of our playthrough. Like, after we leave this area and we move on and we go to the next temple, the more that you talk to people, the more that you see that everyone is just like, this is what we deserve. It very much becomes like these people are almost brainwashed to the religion of Yevon. And they are just like, you know what? We did this. We should have never done this. How dare we turn from Yevon? And it is very interesting to watch a religion take over a people in that manner and to see the extent to which this plan played out for Maester Keenock and Maester Seymour. Did anybody want to say anything about that before I move on?
Yeah, that all happens right after we see how generous our maesters are and are like, yeah, this is about to be a massacre for this reason. And then we get the exact opposite reaction.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then Aaron tells Titus that Sin is jacked. Again, so, at this point he's driving it home. For us players, okay, yeah, Sin is jacked. And then he says that he came here for you, and he killed everyone so that you could see what Sin does. Also, you would want to kill him. And as long as he is Sin, Jacked will keep killing, and he wants you to stop him. I don't know how you guys feel about that as of now. I know for me, it's like, okay, I get the point that Sin is Jacked, but it's very interesting that, Jacked and Titus have this horrible relationship, and now he's just watching his father continuously massacre people just so that it will make Titus angry enough to want to kill his dad. I think it's a very interesting dynamic there.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he needs much encouragement.
True.
Yeah.
He already hates his old man.
And then Oren also asks him to not tell Yuna about the fact that Sin is jacked, because she would distance herself from him, and apparently they don't want that. And there are situations when we move forward as well, in which which we're getting to in the Farplane, where Titus looks for Jecht, and Jecht doesn't appear because if Orn is correct, then Jecht is Sin. And without Yuna knowing at this moment, she's very much just like, oh, see, look, he's still alive somewhere. Don't worry, everything's fine. She has no idea. He just
I
asked
love
whatever.
Yuna for that, to be honest.
I do too.
You said you like Yuna for that?
I kind of do. I kind of don't. I go back and forth.
I like her purity.
No, yeah, I like her purity as well. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a sweet moment. I was like, thank God that Titus learned to keep his mouth shut sometimes. Because this is a very good reason as to why he should have.
Well, thank goodness that he likes Yuna. Because I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure if he didn't, he would have blown it ages ago.
Fact. He
This
talks
is true.
way too much, so yes. So then, we have people telling us that ignoring the teachings was a mistake, and it's so entrenched in them, and it's the worst way to punish non-believers. We make our way to Jose Temple, which only opens, it's a lightning mushroom rock, which only opens when a summoner is addressing the faith, which means that by the time we get there, there is another summoner inside, and this is going to be the third summoner that we meet on our travels, and that is Isaru and his younger brother, Maroda, and Pase. Isaru was influenced by Lord Braska, which is obviously Yuna's dad, and they make a friendly race with Yuna to see who defeats Sin first. He tells them also that some summoners have been disappearing and to be careful. I think this is also really cool because, first we had the bitch that was Donna, and then we have the wise summoner who's already done this before, Belgamine, thank you, and now we have Isaru, which is the, friendly, like, we both
Friendly
want...
rival.
The friendly fanboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, friendly fanboy rival, yeah.
Yeah, we both want the same thing. Let's race to see who gets it first. And, make sure you watch out because this and that has been happening. Does anybody have anything they want to say about Isaru or anything so far before we continue on?
I do, because right before you get to the temple, so we kind of passed it, but we were talking about the aftermath of Operation Mihen.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the thing I want to talk about with Luzu and Gata, if I can talk about that real
Please,
quick.
yes.
Okay, so I'm going to assume everyone here in this podcast, Luzu died, right?
Yes, for me, yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
trying to do it the other way, but I don't know what happened. I missed it somehow. I missed the conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just summarize it real quick for people who know. The Operation Mihen is the first time where you can have a major impact on characters in the story. So Luzu and Gata, up to this point, you've been seeing them travel around together. They were kind of like a duo. But people who got to that cutscene remember that Luzu is going to Gata, telling him to stay and guard the command center while he fights in the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, Gata's not happy about that at all because he wanted to. He left Besaid specifically to fight Sin. He wanted to be part of the operation. Orin tells him that no, it's important to guard the command center too. That you have to follow. If you want to distinguish yourself, you have to follow the orders you were given. But here's where you can alter shit. If you go to Gata after this conversation, you can talk to him twice, and both times you can make a decision. If you don't talk to him at all, or if at any point Tita says you need to guard the command center, he'll ultimately obey orders and not fight, and that results in Luzu's death. But if you go to Gata and talk to him twice, and both times say, yeah, you should be on the front lines, he disobeys orders and dies in the battle, and Luzu lives as a result. Which, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, the very first time I played FF10, Gata died. Because I was very young and I thought he was being mistreated. So I was like, no, go fight. And then I was like, oh, no, Gata, why?
Damn.
And so
Wow.
I saw the scenes of Luzu that happens afterwards, where Luzu is furious and just so heartbroken about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Waka even has a line to Luzu where he says, hey, go back to Besaid, yeah? Get better. So I can punch you some more, yeah? I'm not done with you. Like, it's Waka's way of comforting Luzu, trying to like, hey, you got to be strong for him, in other words.
Still trash, though.
So, yeah. Hardly anyone gets that because, like I said, you have to go to him specifically and say that twice. If you falter even once, or if you don't talk to God at all, you'll just get the default, which is Luzu dying in the battle. So I guess that's the canon way that goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's interesting. So yeah, at the Jose Temple, we're getting back to the present. You do encounter Gata again, and he just tells you that he's going back to Besaid now. So he doesn't appear anymore in the story. Gotta. Like, that's it. Even if Luzu lives, he also doesn't appear anymore in the story. This is pretty much the ending of the Luzu and Gata arc, regardless of who lives or dies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Rip. To both
So,
of them.
Demoralized.
So then, yeah, we're in the temple, we meet Isaru, and then, of course, as we go inside the temple, Bartolo is there with Donna.
Oh, yes!
And
yes!
he admits that Sir Orin is the reason that he became a guardian, and he asks to shake his hand, and he thanks him for everything he's done, and I just thought, yes, Donna, you stupid bitch. Like,
yes!
like,
they all get her after that moment.
The best redeeming moment with having Sir Orin there. And then, Donna comes at Yuna and she's like, everything you got comes from your father. And Yuna says, try standing on your own two legs for once. Your guardians won't be able to protect you when the time comes. And a lot of this is alluding to whatever's going to happen at this final summon. And then they continue on, and they reach the Moonflow after that. Of course, we get Ixion, the electric horse baby, which I'm pretty sure this is the only game that he's in. I believe. I think we talked about it.
I think he comes in more after this, but this is definitely the first time he's a summon.
Yeah.
Wait, what else is he in?
Oh, shoot. I don't know. There's I want to say he's like in one of the spin-offs as a summon as well. But this was like the first time he appeared as a summon in like any kind of Final Fantasy game.
I kind of feel the same, but I'm blanking as well. I'm pretty sure he appears somewhere else, but this is for sure first appearance. I'm blanking.
I think you're all wrong. This is his only appearance. You're all wrong.
Okay, commenters, fact check us.
Yes, please wrong. Fact check us. Anyway, so they continue on to reach the Moonflow. If you talk to the guy at the port area, at the platform, he does mention that Machina are not against Yevon. They're endorsed by Yevon, and that Yevon has taught us when humans have power, they seek to use it, and Yevon decides which Machina can and cannot be used. So I thought that this was super interesting because everyone has been preaching, Albed are horrible, you can't use Machina are really bad, and then here comes this guy that's like, well, technically, Yevon says that you can use some Machina because we're about to use this Machina to get you on this damn shoe puff. And Yevon gets to decide which Machina are usable and which aren't. And so this was, I think, a really, really awesome parallel to real life when, people try to interpret religion in their own way. Where one person will read a religious text and say it means something, and then another person will read the same religious text and say that it means something else. And it's a lot of picking and choosing. It's not all Machina that are bad, it's just the ones that we decide that Yevon said are bad. And I thought that was a really, really interesting point to add to the story. I don't know if anybody else wanted to jump in on that.
Yep, totally agree.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Pick and choose whatever's convenient for me at the time.
Yep.
And then we find out a little bit of history about the Machina during the war 1,000 years ago. The Machina that was made was feared, and it was feared because it was able to destroy the world. It was feared that it would be able to destroy the world, and then the war ended, and that's when sin came about, and the reward for the war was sin. Of course, we get this from Lulu. Miss knows it all, which is amazing.
I love that about Lulu.
Yeah.
Then there was an attempted kidnap as Yuna is grabbed overboard and taken by a Machina, of course, of all things. And then, of course, the game forces us to play with Waka again, which I just love playing with Waka so much. So yeah, it forces us to play with Waka and Titus, and we have to rescue the stolen Yuna, and we find out once we reach the shore that it was Riku who was in the Machina. And
Riku!
They are attempting to... Do we find out why they're stealing summoners? Did they explain it? Yeah?
No, they did not explain it yet.
Okay, not yet.
Not yet.
So it was just very much like, oh yeah, we're just doing this thing, but don't worry, we're just trying to protect them. And that was that. And then Titus is just like, hey guys, remember that owl? Because he's dumb.
I love that. Where he's like, he sees an owl.
Yep, because he's an idiot. And of course, Waka, who is also dumb, doesn't even catch on, so it all works out. The two idiots.
Exactly.
And okay, I want to speak on this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I adore the fact that Waka gets along with Riku at first.
Yeah, so much so.
Before he learns what she is, he's just so cool with her. I absolutely love that despite everything he has been saying up to this point, that he doesn't realize what Riku is, and he's just so cool with her.
Yeah.
Like it says a lot. Like it's a statement, not just a story, but just like real life as well.
Yep.
Exactly. We when we get that scene and when we see 1,000-year-old Xanarkin with Seymour, and we see Riku and Waka. I don't know if you guys noticed, but those two are literally acting exactly the same. Like they're both acting like little kids. They're just so fascinated by this, and they're very much friends. You know, he just takes her in, and he's like, "Oh yeah, cool, another summoner member." And literally everyone, even Orin, is like, "Let me see your eyes." Everyone else is in on the situation. Well, literally everyone. And here's just Waka, like, hey, everything's cool. So then we get Riku to join, and we reach Guadosalam, and that was our original stopping point. But we did go a little bit further because we weren't able to meet up, and things happened in the world that prevented us from meeting up at the time. So we did go a little bit further, as we mentioned in the beginning. We went all the way to Macalania Woods. Is it Macalania Woods or just Macalania?
Macalania Woods is where we ended.
All right, perfect. So then we arrive at Guadosalam, and we meet Trommel, who informs us that Seymour would like Yuna's presence. We are shown then the Xanarkin from 1,000 years ago, as I mentioned before, and we're introduced to a new character, Yunalesca, who we have not seen before. And Seymour does mention that Yuna gets her namesake from Yunalesca, and Yuna's like, well, my dad named me. I don't know if that means that it was from her or not, but Seymour also does mention that puts a lot of responsibility on her. We also meet a lot of Guado at this time, and we find out that they have just begun to learn the teachings of Yevon because they hadn't had it before. So this is fairly new to them, and we also find out that Seymour is, we already knew, but Seymour is half Guado, half human. And he is the person that is supposed to bring these races together. Did anyone want to say anything about Yunalesca or, Xanarkin 1,000 years ago or anything?
I'm wondering how Tidus, I don't know if they explicitly said, I forgot, but I don't know how Tidus explicitly feels about seeing Xanarkin. To all the other party, this is Xanarkin 1,000 years ago, what it looked like, the Great Machina City. Yeah. Whereas Tidus is seeing it, and it's like he must be. It looks exactly like how it was before he left in the beginning of the game. So I just wonder how Tidus was feeling seeing all that.
Yeah,
as a memory, but he literally remembers being there.
Yeah, because at this point, how long has he been with them? A few days, right? Maybe a week.
Yeah, it's been a few days by this point, maybe more.
Yeah,
time really compressed weird. It's only been a few days. They've already witnessed multiple catastrophes and all this summon stuff, and
it might have been
a few days or a week. I feel like
I might give them a month for travel and stuff. I'll say they've had a month together at this point. But yeah, it still hasn't been that long since he's been from Xanarkin. So the memory should definitely still be
fresh.
Yes. And then we move on. Where I think there was something that I wanted to mention.
Did you talk about the or is that after the Xanarkin part bit, the Farplane stuff?
No, I think it was before.
It's after the Xanarkin bit.
No, Farplane was after
Xanarkin, correct.
Okay. She goes to the Farplane to think on what happens there.
Yes.
Oh, so yeah. What did she have to think about, Jerel?
Yeah, so then... Thank you. So then Seymour, being the creep that he is, decides to whisper in her ear, and of course we aren't exactly privy to exactly what this means yet, and then Yuna takes the biggest gulp of water of her life, and she walks over, and she's so
flustered. It's actually kind of adorable.
She's just... It's super cute, and except for it's not, because then she's like, he's asked me to...
the reaction is adorable. The context is not.
Yes. And that's when we find out that Seymour the Creep has asked Yuna to marry him, to give the people of Spira a lovely little respite from all the horrible things that are happening in the world due to sin. And Yuna is really conflicted because, the empathetic part of her who just wants the world to be happy is ready to say yes to Seymour, but then the other part of her that knows that she needs to go on this pilgrimage and finish this. And the part that probably wants to marry for love instead of creepness definitely is looking at a no. So unfortunately she's undecided in the beginning, and that's when they decide to go to visit the Farplane. And of course we get the explanation of the Farplane and the Fireflies, which if anyone wants to hop in and explain those better than me.
Yeah. So Fireflies are basically more or less the essence of someone's soul when they leave a body or a fiend. It's actually explained by, we kind of didn't mention this character at all because he's not that important, but on the Mihen Hyro, we also are introduced to Machen, who's like a wandering, he's a wanderer that basically is like looking to get information on Spira. You can talk to him from time to time as you're traveling, and he gives you like lore basically. If you want a little extra lore about the world of Spira, Machen gives that to you. And he actually explains the Fireflies a little bit before they touch on a little bit on the Farplane. And yeah, just basically they're the souls that are trying to head to the Farplane is what the Fireflies are. So anytime, if you've wondered if you're playing FF10 with us, what those weird things coming out of the fiends' bodies are when you kill them, those are the Fireflies of the people that they once were, finally being sent to the Farplane, essentially.
Also, Machen is like so weird.
I like his voice is weird, but it's also weirdly soothing.
No. I don't mean his voice. I mean the fact that his ass is just this old-ass man that is traveling everywhere. Like, go sit down somewhere.
By himself.
Like, all alone. Like, where there are fiends everywhere.
He must be secretly really strong.
He has to be. I remember when I was going through the Thunder Plains, I was like, why the fuck is he out here in the middle of the Thunder Plains? Like, dude.
Like, deep in there.
Please, like, go.
Like deep in the Thunder Plains.
Yes, like, please, dude, go somewhere else. Like, don't be here. This is not a good
like
place.
as Tidus, I could barely dodge the stupid lightning.
Oh my god.
I could
my
not.
god.
I don't know what this timing is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, fun fact, I dodged a whole one lightning. My whole road.
It was
I
trash.
dodged the whole 2 lightning, so I'm not that much better off.
It was trash. You know what happened every time I ended a battle and went into the menu? Literally every time I came out of the menu, lightning would strike.
Oh my god, yes!
Yeah, I wouldn't even get a chance to block it because I just got out
right
the fucking
after a
menu.
battle. You just finished, checking your level ups and all that. Boom! What? Come
Yep.
on!
Every single time. Every single time.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is cutting ahead, but we're on the subject. I'm going to say this now. I hate the Thunder Plains, man. It is my least favorite part of going through any kind of FF10 playthrough. I super despise it. It made me mad. It makes me mad. And there's so many side quests in that area, but I've never done that because I can't stand that.
Nobody
place.
looks forward to that.
The
Bring us to
freaking...
Kristie, I'm sorry.
It's the reason why I still haven't gotten Lulu's ultimate weapon at all in my original playthrough.
Yeah.
Isn't her weapon is the one that's tied with the Thunder Plane?
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it was Mari's actually.
No, it is Lulu's. No, Kristie got it.
But doesn't Kimari get it too?
He gets
I don't believe so.
He gets his celestial weapon there.
Celestial weapon. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Okay,
Man,
cool.
there were too many freaking spawns in the freaking Thunder Plains. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Literally every 2
That's
steps I'm finding something
true.
else.
Yeah.
If I ever attempt Thunder Plains for a side quest, I'm putting on no encounters when I get it.
100%. 100%.
Anyway, so they decide to go into the Farplane, and as I don't know if I mentioned before, but the Farplane is a place where where the Fireflies come together to show you the memory of loved ones that you think about. And Yuna uses this time to go speak to her mom and dad, and Waka uses this time to speak to Chapu, and Kimari's just standing guard. Oren does not go in. And it's very interesting because Seymour actually, before they go into the Farplane, turns to Oren and he asks him why he's still here, saying that the Guado have a keen scent for the Farplane. And then, of course, we see a little bit later on, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but Lord Jiskel, who is the father of Seymour, who was also deceased at this point, somehow the fireflies of him or his soul or something, I don't know, someone can explain it better to me, comes out of the Farplane, and the dead are not meant to leave the Farplane, so this is a very serious thing that happens here in the middle of this game. And while this is happening, Oren is also being affected by the Fireflies or the Farplane or something. So not sure exactly what's happening to Oren, but somehow he is tied to death and the Farplane and Fireflies, and it seems as if Seymour notices that. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about. Like, is Oren really here? Like, what the fuck is going on? Because I don't know. So I'm excited to see what happens there. But Yuna talks to her parents, and then she mentions to Titus to talk to his father. And as I mentioned earlier, his father does not show up. And, the innocent Yuna's like, oh, he's still alive somewhere, yay. And then, Seymour definitely piles on a little bit about Yuna marrying him, saying that they can overcome the barriers of race and marry in the name of Yevon. Actually, that might have been Lulu. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was Lulu.
Okay, Lulu. Yeah, so once they had that situation in which Lord Driscoll comes out of the Farplane, Yuna has to send him so that he doesn't stay here. And he drops a little something at her feet. And at the moment, we aren't sure what it is yet. And then we have a lovely conversation about love with Lulu. And I found out that apparently you can also have this conversation with Riku. But I'm pretty sure all of us had it with Lulu.
Yeah, I did.
Yes, because it's way easier to get it with Lulu than it is with Riku. And I'll touch on that in a second once we talk about the love conversation.
So Lulu does mention that, love is not necessarily needed for marriage. And that, Yuna has very important things coming up ahead of her. And for her, it's very much just two different ways to get to the same effect, which is making sure that the people of Spirit are happy. And then she turns around later on and says, if she were to marry, I would love it if she could marry for love. But if she were to marry for love, I would not allow her to marry the one that she is in love with. And at that point, I'm just like, yeah, Lulu knows that Yuna is in love with Titus, and he loves her too. So look at Lulu being all perceptive and shit.
Objection.
Especially after the choice that you get when Lulu says a certain thing.
Yes. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, I'll touch on it now. So right after all this is said and done, Lulu goes to Titus and says, I probably shouldn't have to say this, but don't fall in love with her. And Titus, you have three choices. You can either say, okay, second choice is too late, or three is, you're more my type, Lulu. And so the very fact that you can have this conversation with Lulu or Riku, and that those second and third choices is all tied into a hidden mechanic in this game, which is like a hidden affection table, which I only learned about it because I found out because right before I had done the stream of this, our checkpoint for this month, I had seen pictures of a line of having the same conversation but with Riku. I'm like, wait, how do you get the Riku conversation? I was trying, Jerel, you may know because I was doing a stream. I was desperately trying to get Riku, and I was just like, nope, it was only with Lulu. Then I looked it up, and I found out this entire rabbit hole of this hidden affection mechanic. Not too much different from the actual one that's an FF7 remake as well with Tifa and Aerith. So basically, with Barrett, poor Barrett. Like you only get Barrett if you just ignore the other two at all.
I tried to do it because I saw you do it, but I did the exact same thing you did on stream and got Lulu.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you get to Guado Salam, there's not too much you can do to change yourself from the Lulu path. Because here's how certain decisions in the game you make up to this point, such as, hey, remember that boat where Waka and Lulu were having that conversation? If you ignore that conversation entirely, you don't get affinity with either of them. But if you do, you get affinity with both of them. Or if all your party is together, the first one you talk to is apparently who you get more affinity with. If as Titus you heal a party member, you get affinity with them. So there's all these like little hidden mechanics, like just who you talk to first, heal other conversations that you've in the game that will just raise that affinity meter. And basically, if you've done with everything that you can at that point, like you didn't miss any like missable conversations, there's almost no way you're not going to get Lulu unless you just healed Riku a lot up to Guado Salam. So it's really hard to get Riku in that conversation. But this is one of the first times where it's affected. You can either talk with Lulu or Riku in Guado Salam, depending on who you have a higher affinity with at that point. There's other parts that will come later in the game where that will be affected as well, and you'll have more party member decisions besides just those two. But for the first two, just between Lulu and Riku. And, of course, that choice right there, okay, you're more my type, Lulu, or it's too late, that, of course, is affection as well. If you say you're more my type, Lulu, then that's points raised for Lulu. If you say too late, then that's points raised to Yuna. If you say okay, then it's just neutral. But you can do that same thing with Riku as well, if you got that conversation, because I looked it up. You can flirt with Riku to get more points to her, Yuna, or just neutral. So that's all that is. Hidden affection mechanic. By the time you get to the next checkpoint, there's going to be another scene that's dependent on that, and I'm very interested in us talking about that as well.
By the time we get to the checkpoint in Makalani?
By the time we get to our next stopping point for the month,
okay.
we're for sure going to get to another scene that's dependent on the affinity.
I see.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that later when we talk about that when we get to there.
And with one tidbit that I forgot, with Lord Jisco's return, they do mention that one of the reasons that someone could return in that manner is because they died an unclean death. So,
right.
We don't know exactly what that means yet, but we do know that somehow Lord Jiskel has died an unclean death. So I'm sure we're going to figure out what the fuck happened to Seymour's daddy later on.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we find out that Seymour has left and gone to Macalania, and Yuna is really conflicted about this decision that she has to make. We go through the Thunder Plains next. We did talk a little bit about the Thunder Plains, but this is where poor fucking Riku,
poor Riku, I felt so bad for her.
Same. She is deathly afraid of thunder, and we just have to, take her through the entire Thunder Plains to get to Makalani, and we find out that it's because when she was younger, her brother used magic to try to defeat a fiend, and he hit her with the lightning magic instead of the fiend, and she's been deathly afraid ever since. And that's also where we get that conversation with Rin to Orin about their past and him being injured. Does anything else happen in that area? Oh, we also talked to Machen.
Titus kind of bumps into Yuna as she's listening to the spear that Jisco dropped.
Oh, yeah, I was getting there. We bumped into Macon, and he tells us the invention of the Thunder Plane conductors, and apparently that guy who made him died when he got struck by thunder, so look at that.
Which I thought was hilarious.
I was like, oh my gosh.
The irony.
That's trash. Poor man. And then we stop at the inn to give Riku a moment's respite, and then Titus, as we mentioned, makes his way into the room where Yuna's staying. He fumbles himself inside, and he sees Yuna watching the spear that fell from Lord Jiskel. And after that, she's made her decision. We walk out through the Thunder Plains again, and she talks about how she is going to marry Seymour because she's finally decided that she's going to marry him. And she doesn't specify why, but there is speculation within the party that it's most likely because there is something that Yuna wants in return that she's going to get, and that she's probably meddling in with whatever information she's found out from this spear with Lord Jiskel that she does not share with the party. So I thought this was really, really interesting as a player to see Yuna in a position in which she won't even share what's happening with her guardians, some of whom she's known when she was a child. So this must be something that is super freaking confidential and important to the story, especially because it has to deal with Seymour and his father in the Guado, and the fact that Lord Jiskel died or was dead with some form of unclean death came through the Farplane to drop this off. So this definitely is going to have some significance, and the tension from whatever happens is ramping up, so much so that Yuna has agreed to marry the creep just to hopefully come out better for it on the other end with whatever deal she plans on making with Seymour. I don't know if anybody wants to talk a little bit about that.
Nothing right now.
Yeah, not at this current point in time.
And then that's pretty much it, because after that conversation, we make our way to Macalania, in which this conversation is had, and that is our current stopping point. Before we move on, does anyone have any final comments on anything from the Mihin High Road all the way up to Macalania?
I have one curiosity, actually.
Oh, go ahead. You first.
My curiosity is after the operation, when Oren was talking to Titus and telling him, like, oh, you know, Sin is Jekt, he wants you to be the one to end him because of this and that, whatever reasons Oren gave. I'm like, how do you know that, Oren? Like, do you keep tabs? Do you talk to Sin to know these reasons? Can you elaborate?
Facts.
What the fuck you are telling me to do? Like, yeah,
but
that's your dad. He wants you to
like,
kill him. Go ahead, bro.
It does seem like Oren can talk to Sin to some degree because, and this is something I'm fuzzy on, so this is not a spoiler, it's just my speculation. At the very beginning of the game, right before they leave Xanakin, Oren looks up at what's apparently Sin and says, "You're sure?" So it seems he does.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
It
That does happen
to some degree.
I never thought about that. Brandon, you're so perceptive. He literally does.
I didn't think about that until Joe mentioned it. I was like, wait a minute, can he talk to him? I was like, wait, he did.
He's been talking to his ass this whole time. He could have told him not to kill everybody. Like, come on, bro.
Straight up.
What?
Who's the real villain, Oren?
I actually never linked that. Good shit, Brandon. But I still, that doesn't give me answers, though.
Jack might have called Oren his cell phone and be like, yo, I'm going to hit up Mihin High Road. He's like, bet.
Right? Make sure my son is there.
Make sure he's there.
Want him to see me be an asshole. But you wanted to bring up something as well, Brandon?
Yeah, this is nothing as insightful as what Joe mentioned. This is just a funny little thing that they think the localization team must have put in the English version of the game, because I cannot see this being in the original Japanese. When before they get to the Thunder Plains, Tina says, "Hey, we're going to the Macarena Temple, right?"
Oh my gosh!
and then Walker says, "Macalania," and then Tina smiles and, "All right."
That was great.
I was like, there is no way this was in the original Japanese. That is such a reference you would put in 2002. It was just, I died when I got there in the street because I completely forgot that was a joke that they added. It was like, God,
that was definitely a top tier localization team. Good job, good shit.
Yeah,
We're still laughing about it in 2020.
Good job, 2002 Square Soft localization team.
Facts. Were they not Square Enix by then?
Not yet.
Squaresoft.
They were still Squaresoft. I think 2003 was the first Square Enix year.
Ah, okay. Damn, y'all, we old as fuck. Jeez.
Don't remind me.
I'm sorry. Wow, that's crazy. So long ago. Anyway, so yeah, that's where we have stopped so far. I don't know where the next stopping point is going to be, but please look out on our socials so we can update you as to where we're going to stop next. I'm sure Brandon knows more than I do, so we'll definitely get that information out. Huh?
I said I got an idea. We'll talk about it.
There we go. So thank you guys for having this conversation with me. We went all the way from the Mihin High Road up to Macalania Woods, and I can't wait because things are getting more and more invested and more interesting as we go along with this upcoming wedding, apparently, and whatever the fuck Jiskel gave Yuna, and, you know, Yuna's keeping secrets, and Macalania Woods is gorgeous, and I'm just ready to explore it with our new party member. If I'm not mistaken, now we have all the party members.
We got all 7.
7? Damn, that's a lot of these. Jeez, I only use like 5. But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode of JRPG Club number 3 as we go through Final Fantasy X. As I mentioned, please be sure to check out our socials too if you would like to keep up with us on the gameplay. And, if you are keeping up with us and you'd like to be a part of the podcast, please reach out to us on any of our social media accounts. On Twitter, we are at critical_HP, and Facebook and Instagram. Actually, Facebook is HPCritical and Instagram is HPCritical Gaming. And I'm going to let Brandon take us out.
Yeah, no problem. So as Jerel mentioned, our socials, you can keep track with us, track of anything that we're doing there, and of course, reach out to us on those social medias. If you need to talk with us about anything, tell us your progress FF10 or just anything else. But of course, This is all part of our website, HPCritical.com. So we have articles written by writers every single day on gaming, entertainment, movies, shows, anime, books, and all that stuff. And again, daily updates. So definitely come check out HPCritical.com for all that good stuff. You want to support our content? We got a Patreon that we started this month. You can support us at patreon.com/HPCritical. You can get goodies like bracelets, stickers, and we're going to have even more rewards for you guys in the future. You'll be able to influence streams. You may have spots on a podcast just like this one that we're doing right now. And we got more planned that we'll be revealing in the future. And last but not least, if you go to the website, hpcritical.com, you can sign up for our newsletter. You'll get monthly emails on our top-rated articles, stream schedules, podcasts like this one, tournament info, Patreon info, and for if you're already supporting us on Patreon, you'll even get thank you notes every single time a newsletter comes out. So if you like us, go ahead and give us support at patreon.com/hpcritical.
Thank you. And speaking of those Patreon members, I definitely want to give them a shout out on this podcast right now.
Go for it.
For being Patreon members. So, special thank you goes out to Belinda, Brianna, Clarence, Grayson, Job, John, Chris, Miss Platinum 305, Shania, Stephanie, Tamia, Toy, and Tia. Thank you guys for being Patreons to our website. We're super, super thankful. It allows us to continue to do these things that we are passionate about and love to do. So thank you so much. As Brandon mentioned, we are still, accepting Patreon members. So please, help us out. Thanks. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to another JRPG podcast. Be sure to follow our socials as mentioned before to make sure you keep up with us. And if you want to be a part of this, reach out to us, of course. And we are hopefully looking to finish this game for sure before the year ends. And we'll definitely be taking, suggestions or submissions for the next game that we play throughout our JRPG Club program. So thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Peace.